Hello and welcome back to my sewing room. I'm Liz, this is Flying Bobbins, and today I'm going to be making the slipper booties. Here they are, here's the ones I made earlier, and I'm going to be using the Jalie Nordik pattern. So if you've been watching my videos, you'll see that I've already done a tutorial on these lovely slippers, and now I'm going to move on to the booties. So I'm going to use, if I just move these out of the way, I am going to use Flying Bobbins fabric pack. So here's what you get in your Flying Bobbins fabric pack, and this accompanies the Jalie Nordik sewing pattern, which you buy separately. So I'm going to go for the Flying Cranes fabric in mustard. And I just like this colour because it kind of reminds me of Ugg boots, and I think they're just going to go with everything. So when I'm padding around the house in my black jeans, I think these will go really nicely. And I love those colours as well. So I've got some cotton in there, printed cotton. I've got some non-slip fabric. I've got some fusible fleece, and that's going to fuse to the cotton parts to give them some extra body and warmth as well. And then I've got this gorgeous snuggly, soft, cuddly Sherpa fleece, and it kind of looks slightly like lambskin fleece. It's it's 100% polyester, but it has that look of cuddly lambskin. And then you get your notions as well. So you get your thread, which matches the cotton of your choice. And these boots actually have a tie-up at the front, so I've included some cotton tape. There's a bit of grosgrain trim that goes at the back of the boot. That's like a little pulling loop. And you need quite a lot of elastic for this, so I've included some elastic as well. As an optional extra, I've also popped some metal cord toggles, which I'm going to pop on my drawstrings once I've made the boots. So the first thing to do is to get prepared by cutting all your pieces out and then fusing your cotton with your interfacing. So let's start by cutting out. Now I've already got my pattern pieces cut out because I've made these before, but when you first get this pattern you'll have one really big A0 size sheet with everything on it. Go back to my video if you haven't already watched it, which covers how to cut out and organise your pattern, and also how to measure your feet and decide on the size. If you go back to my introductory video right at the beginning of this series, you'll see all of that information. So once you've decided on your size, you're going to need to cut out your pieces along the corresponding line. This pattern is fantastic. It goes all the way from a junior, like quite a young child size, right up to an adult size 12. So you can make these for literally everybody in your family. So here's the pieces. There's quite a few pieces for these slippers. You're going to need or for these booties I should say, you're going to need the sole, and all of the pieces for the booties have the picture of the booties on them. So, it's kind of easy to see what you need. But you're going to need your sole. You're going to have this strip here, and that is to make your adjustment loops. And those are the loops which your draw cord threads through. The little tirette or pull loop, I'm actually going to use the grosgrain tape, but you can cut this out if you like from the same fabric. You've got the back leg. There, you're going to need to cut those out. I folded these over when I was looking at how much fabric I needed for the child sizes, but there you go. I'm cutting incidentally a size 24, which is roughly about a UK size 5. So there you go, that's my back of my leg. You've then got your front of your leg, your toe band, your foot band, that will go around your front of your foot. You've got your top edge binding, and lastly you've got the top of the foot, so that sits around your toe area. So those are all the pattern pieces that you are going to need to cut out in the appropriate size. If you're making more than one size, then I definitely recommend that you trace the pattern so that you can keep it for further use. I've actually gone ahead and cut mine out. So I'm going to now start cutting out my fabric. And here's my fabric with the crane print. I've folded my fabric selvage to selvage. The selvages are just those little edges that you get on the side of your fabric. One of them will be printed with the name of the manufacturer and the other one will just have a different texture. So fold your fabric together selvage to selvage. Now I folded it this way with the print looking at me because I wanted to show you something, which is that this print has a definite direction to it. All these cranes are facing this way. So if you're cutting out a fabric for these slippers or booties that has a direction on the print, you need to be careful when you're cutting out that all your pieces are going in the right direction. I'll start by laying out the bigger pieces. So I've got the front of the leg. I've got the straight grain line matched there, and I know that sits, it sits like that sort of around the front of my leg, so I know that I want my cranes to be facing up that way. So I need to put the pattern piece that way. Now I have to make the decision with the foot area. Do I want the cranes to also be flying up, or do I want to kind of have it so that they're going down, flying towards my toe? I'm thinking that it'll probably look better if they're flying down so that the cranes are kind of coming up my leg and away from my toe. You could equally have them so that they're all the same. I'll try and show you what I mean. So if you imagine this is your slipper, so you can choose to either have your cranes going this way on the toe and then up your leg, so they're all facing in the same direction, or if I just fold this to give you the impression, you can choose to have it like that, look. So on the leg they're flying up, and then on the toe they're flying down towards your toe. And I somehow feel instinctively that I quite like the look of it when they're flying sort of down my toe and up my leg, because they're flying away. But the choice is yours. I'm going to do it that way, and I hope that explanation made sense. This is a very obvious direction on this print. So if you're working with an all over print, you obviously don't have to think about that, but it's just a little styling element, to decide. So you can see how mine turn out, and then you can decide which way you want to do yours. Just thought I'd talk a little bit more about getting this stripy cotton fabric right. So what I've done when I came to cut it out is I've folded along one of the stripes. So you see the little dashes in between the birds' beaks and tails. I folded along that line, and now I'm going to, rather than kind of matching up at the selvages, because they can then go slightly askew, which is absolutely fine. But if you know that this fold here is exactly on one of those stripes, so I've got kind of exactly half the pattern front and back, and you can use your iron to press that in place as well if you want. You just kind of want to be folding that fabric along that stripe there, and then when I'm going to cut out my toe of my bootie, the top, what do they call it, the top of the foot, there's the sort of centre front mark there where the toe is. I'm actually going to line that up, and I'm going to think about how I want this to be, because it would be nice to have one of those stripes of birdie fabric, birdie print, kind of at the centre front, rather than having it so that my toe is there and I've got a stripe either side. It's just these extra little touches that make your homemade makes that little bit more special compared with what you'd buy in the shops, because it's all the thought that goes into it. So there's my toe notch there. If I kind of put that there, I know I've got a centimetre seam allowance, I can kind of have it so that I've got one of those birds at the tip of my toe. And when I fold that over and cutting a pair out, I should, because I've folded it here, the print on this side should be the same. So I'm cutting out an identical or print matched pair. So if I kind of put that there, then I'm going to get a really nice finish. So, and then the other thing, when I come to cut the bit that comes up here, the front of the boot, so I just wanted to show you in a bit more detail. So here's this pattern piece, is that bit there, just that it makes sense. And then this pattern piece sits here. So kind of goes like that. So I kind of thinking to myself as well, this centre front mark here, if I put that on one of the birdie stripes, then that will hopefully, roughly, you know, thereabouts line up, and it will just look that little bit more polished and special. You know, you don't get this necessarily with things that you buy in the shops, and the more that you sew, the more that you'll notice, oh, you know, they haven't pattern matched that stripe at the side seam or something like that, and you know, you'll find that you've become an expert before long. And you'll never want to buy clothes in shops again. Right, and then, so this bit here, I'm going to put this way, because that's going to sit like that, yeah? That's going to sit like that. So I want the birds to be flying along my foot from my, where my leg comes up onto the toe, and then I want them to be flying up my leg. So this notch here and this kind of notch here matches up with, you know, it's in a line with this area. This is like the centre front of your foot. So if I match these lines again up with this line of birds, I know that that will all sit nice and straight. For the back part, it doesn't matter quite so much because that's just the entire back of your leg. I can show you. The delivery van has just arrived full of food. The children are excited, and there's also some Lego in there. Extra excitement. But anyway, there you go. So this is, so you can see there's the top of my foot. There's the front leg. The back leg, there's a seam that comes down here. The back leg covers the whole back, so you don't have to worry so much. There's nothing to sort of match it to here. There's no heel part, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So that one, I just want to make sure it's on the straight grain, and it's kind of those notches at the bottom and the top are matching up with the lines of cranes, because I think it would look nice if I had a line of birds at the, you know, if this line here of flying birds are at the kind of centre back of my leg. That will look nice rather than having it sort of offset slightly. It would look better if it's kind of centralised. So, you know, whenever you're cutting out prints, it's always worth thinking about these things. How the print's going to be placed and what's it going to look like. Just, you know, take your time, because it can affect how the end design of your piece that you're making will actually look. So there you go. And now with the other bits, because I've got my foot band, and that will sit sort of around there. So again, I'll just do the same. I'll just match up the centre front notches with one of those stripes of birds. The binding, it's going to be folded in half and folded in half again. You're not really going to see anything that much of that, so I'm not too fussed about that. And the little loops for your cotton tape to thread through, they're just going to be so tiny. So just to show you, that's the top edge band, and these are the little cotton loops for your cotton tape. They're not going to matter too much. And that's your toe band there, going around the toe. You can see that I've worn these absolutely every day. There you go. So I hope that helps you with your cutting out if you are using the flocking cranes print, or if you're using a fabric of your own at home that has a stripe on it. So I'm going to crack on with my cutting out finally now. Next up is the fusible interfacing, and this is a bit easier than the printed fabric. Just fold it in half, so you're cutting out a pair of everything, and you want to cut out a pair of leg backs, a pair of leg fronts, a pair of top foot pieces and a pair of soles. So you've got 4 pattern pieces for the interfacing. And then you've got your fleece for the lining for the inside of the boot, and those are the same 4 pieces as you've used for your fusible interfacing, plus the toe band as well. Now the thing that I need to tell you about this is that it has a direction. So the pile runs this way. If I stroke my fingers back, can you see that's the wrong direction? It's going against the pile. If I smooth my fingers down, that's the way it wants to go. That way it's going sideways. So you want to fold your fabric in half, but think about laying it out with the grain this way, or the pile. And then when you're putting on your pattern pieces, just think that you want that grain going in that direction. If you put it that way, when your foot goes into your boot, it will go against the pile of the fabric. So you want to go with the pile of the fabric. So you're going to have this way. And same for all the other pieces again. So this one will go this way where it goes in. Now for the leg pieces, again, you want the pile to go that way because you're going to put your foot in at the top of the boot and down into the boot. And for that one, it's going to be kind of upside down as well because you want to put your foot down into the boot. So these are just all things. And if you get this wrong, it's not the end of the world, you know, but it's just all things to think about. So I'm just going to lay that out like that. So hopefully you can see that's 5 pieces that you need to cut in the fleece lining. And then lastly, and the most easy bit, is the non-slip sole fabric. So you've just got a small piece of that, and you can fold it either way and just figure out what's the most economical way of using that fabric. So you're just going to cut out 1 pair of those of the sole. And once you've cut out all of those, you are ready to start your fusing of your interfacing. So I'm going to go and get all of those cut out, and then I'm going to come back with a bit of a plan out of all the bits that you should have, a bit of a checklist. And so I'll see you in a minute. And after a marathon of cutting, those are all the pieces that you need. So I'm going to talk you through them now so that this can be your kind of checklist ready to make your boots. So your back leg, you're going to have in printed cotton, in interfacing, and in the Sherpa fleece. Then your front leg, you're going to have in the same printed cotton, interfacing, and Sherpa fleece. And the same for your toes, or your front of your foot. Let's move that there. So that you are going to have in your printed cotton, interfacing, and fleece. Moving over to the sole of the foot, you are going to have your non-slip fabric, your interfacing, and your fleece. And then the other bits and pieces, you have got your adjustment loop fabric, just a pair of printed cottons, and then your toe band or your foot band in printed cotton and fleece for the lining. And then last but not least, your finishing top edge binding just in the printed cotton. And each of those pieces are cut as a pair. And that is everything. So it's a rather long list, but hopefully, you know, this is a project where the cutting out kind of takes as long as the sewing. And a bit of preparation at the beginning will stand you in good stead for a really enjoyable sewing project, actually, because these are a lot of fun to make. When you're cutting out each piece, don't forget you've got your notch markings on each piece. Just make sure that you do transfer those. It'll make it a lot easier to match everything up. And as you can see, you know, matching up that pattern there, I've got a nice stripe of those cranes at the toe position. So yeah, happy with all of that. Gonna now fuse my cotton with my interfacing. The next job on the list is to fuse our interfacing to our pattern pieces here. We're going to do these one at a time, and the pieces that we need are the back of the leg in the cotton and the interfacing, the front of the leg in the cotton and the interfacing, the top of the foot in the cotton and the interfacing, and the soles in the non-slip and the interfacing. And I'm just going to do these pieces one at a time. So move those out of the way, and we'll start off with the top of the foot. So you're going to be looking at the wrong side of your fabric, and do these one at a time. So just slide that to the side. Then you've got these here, and you've got a gluey side, which is rough, and you've got a fluffy side. And you just want to place the gluey side face down on the back of your fabric. Yep, so there, looks like that. Just try and line them up as best you can. You can use a cloth underneath your piece, just to make sure you don't end up with any little sticky bits of residue on your ironing board. And then you want to use a pressing cloth, otherwise known in this instance as my tea towel, on the top there. Make sure that everything's lined up. Also make sure that there are no bits of thread or fluff or what have you caught in between the two layers, and that there are no wrinkles in either, in the fabric beneath. I've got my iron on, I've got some water in there ready for steam. I think I've put too much water in there actually. And then I'm just going to press and hold. I'm in between sort of a wool and cotton setting, and kind of two dots up to 3 dots. And you just need to press and hold. And it says on the interfacing instructions, just press on each area for 15 seconds. So you're not going like this, you're lifting your iron and placing it down. And that should melt that glue from the interfacing onto the fabric, so that you get that sizzling noise. Is just because I spilt some water on the tea towel before, because I filled up my iron too full up. It's a bit over enthusiastic. So this is going to be boring for you to watch. I'm going to go ahead and individually fuse each of these interfacing pieces. Once they're done, you can then just give them a little press on the right side as well, just to make sure that everything's fully in place. That's that water again that I spilt. And then once that's done, we're ready to sew. So I'm going to do that for each of those pieces. Take it nice and slowly, and then we'll get on with sewing.